Welcome everyone to the very first Exopolitics Today week in review. So what I'm going to be doing on a weekly basis is doing a podcast where I go over the preceding week's top exopolitics stories. I mean, there's a lot happening right now and it's happening really, really fast. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my Twitter feed or Telegram feeds, then this is the time to do it. What I do is put out those top stories that I think are very relevant from an exopolitics perspective. And each week I'm going to go over those top stories, just give you a little bit more detail than what was said in the feed. So this is going to be a very exciting series. I hope you enjoy it.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Welcome back. So let's begin with Monday, June 5, as the beginning of this week that I'm going to be reviewing. So let's go to my Twitter feed and let's look at that first story I dropped on Monday. So this was a report by JP, the US Army insider that I've known since 2008, before he joined the military. And JP dropped a report about visiting a massive spaceport under an unknown South Atlantic island. So he was taken as part of a team of 20 to this island, uncharted, or certainly not on any map, but of course known to the covert world. And he found there a massive spaceport. And he was accompanied by, of all people, his cousin, who this is the first time he met his cousin on a mission, and he didn't know his cousin was part of this covert world. So it's definitely a family thing, kind of intergenerational thing, because JP's father was involved as well. But more on that another time. So JP goes into this underground facility. There's a massive spaceport there. He says it's so much larger than the spaceport he saw when he was taken on another mission to an area in the Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee area. Some people have speculated that this could be around Huntsville, Alabama, because there's a lot of limestone caverns down there. So yeah, definitely a big cavern somewhere in that Alabama area, Huntsville. That's the guess of some, and I think that's a good guess. So he's taken to this underground facility there in somewhere in the South Atlantic. He gets to meet with a Nordic-looking being that is part of an ancient civilization. And he's told that this being is 1,200 years old. He goes through a kind of an initiation of sorts, if you like. He and his cousin are put into some box for close to a day. He spent close to a day in there. And apparently that was to change his vibration so that when he met with the elder, that there wouldn't be too much of a mismatch in terms of energy. And I've heard this before. Inner Earth civilizations, their energy field is much more refined than ours, which is why they can live to 1,000 or longer, as such as this particular individual. So it does make sense to me that JP was put through some purification process, even though it wasn't a very pleasant experience for him. But at the end of the day, he gets to meet with this Nordic who gives him a message. And that key message was that there are going to be a lot more UFO sightings. The extraterrestrials, the inner Earth civilizations are going to be revealing themselves, and people are going to see many more flying saucers, extraterrestrial craft, anti-gravity craft, and encountering extraterrestrials, encountering non-human beings. That's going to become much more prevalent. So that was the message JP got on that was released on June 5, his last update. And I have a special update from JP that I'm going to be telling you at the end of this presentation of this week in review. This is something that hasn't been released, so you're going to see this message from JP about his encounter with the extraterrestrial, or that Nordic-looking being. Okay, so the next big thing was talking about JP. This June 5 was the official release of US Army Insider missions, space arcs, underground cities, and ET contact. This is the first volume of what will be a multi-volume series about JP and his missions. As I mentioned, I've known him since 2008, and he's been telling me about his experiences with extraterrestrials, secret space programs, military abductions for 15 years now. And this was something that I chronicled and recorded. Many of our conversations, I took notes and recorded other conversations. And so everything has been analyzed and transcribed in this book. So you get to see the whole story from the beginning, and you get to find out the big picture concerning JP, because when you hear the isolated missions or the various articles I've written on him, you kind of get a little bit of the picture. But when you put it all together, it really is very compelling. And the thing that kind of like surprised me in putting together this book was that I realized how close the relationship between JP and these Nordic extraterrestrials that he's been having experiences with since 2008. This is something that has been going on for 15 years now, and what become clear is that at some point the covert US Air Force branch learned about JP, learned about his experiences with the Nordic extraterrestrials, and wanted to recruit him. And what I found in putting together this book, when you look at the entire sequence of experiences he had, it's quite clear that he is protected by these Nordics, and that the Air Force and the US Navy know JP. And this was one of the chapters in the book. I cover an incident where JP is taken by the Nordics to a off-world facility where JP sees a lot of Air Force and a lot of Navy personnel being trained to use some extraterrestrial technology. So JP is brought into this observation area, and he's there with another officer, the senior officer, and he's just observing this. And what was made clear was that the Nordics understood that JP is someone that is going to be playing a big role in disclosure, that he is their asset, really. I mean, that's what it boils down to. He is their asset. The US Navy, the US Air Force, and the Army all know about this, and that becomes clear. And several other chapters talk about this relationship between the Nordics and JP, and how the Air Force were told that JP is their guy, and he's got and the Air Force has to protect him on Earth. So that's very interesting. And JP, in this book, I talk about JP being recruited into the Army. It's a kind of a process. He was courted by Air Force operatives for a long time to join. I advised him not to join for many years, because I thought that once he did join, that he wouldn't be able to continue telling me about his missions and disclosure. But eventually he did join, and it turned out to be a positive thing, because he is allowed to talk about his missions and give updates. And that's because this is the arrangement between the Nordics and the Air Force. It boils down to the fact that by protecting JP and by allowing JP to come out with disclosures about these secret space programs, about his various experiences, the Air Force and the Navy and the Army are showing their goodwill to the Nordics in terms of, yeah, we want disclosure too. You know, that the forces that are preventing disclosure are not us, that this is a kind of deep state operation to keep all of this secret, but we are fully on board with disclosure. And to show you that, we are going to allow this guy, JP, to disclose this stuff. So that's what was happening. And in 2017, the book, I have several chapters in that book that expand upon one of the chapters in my US Air Force and Secret Space Program book, where I talk about JP taking photos of flying triangles and flying rectangles around MacDill Air Force Base in 2017. I expand upon that material in this book. So now there's 4 chapters covering the whole sequence of events. So this was all before JP joined the Army. He was being encouraged to take photos of flying triangles, flying rectangles belonging to Air Force Special Operations operating out of MacDill Air Force Base, which is the home of Special Operations Command. And then, of course, in 2019, JP joins the Army, and he is now being taken on missions and being given access to things that previously he was denied access to. And in the book, I cover a couple of incidents, one in 2016, where JP is taken to a platform, a donut-shaped platform in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. He's taken to that platform with a companion who's called Lovent, an Indian-looking gentleman. That is the continent of India. So JP is taken to this platform. Air Force operatives take him there, because, as I said, the Air Force and the Nordics have this agreement. And so the Air Force take him there. JP is transported by a TR-3B. It lands. He goes to an area in the center of this platform where there's an elevator going down to something. He didn't know at the time what that was. And there's a lot of other extraterrestrials there. There's extraterrestrials there. They're all being greeted by an Army general. So Army is in charge of security at many of these projects, these kind of inter-services, international projects. We have multiple nations and US military services interacting. You have the Army, US Army, in charge of security. So JP goes there. He walks with these extraterrestrials and his companion to go into this elevator, to go down to see what's at the bottom of this platform, this Navy platform, and he's denied access. This Army general, kind of yells at him and his companion and says, "Get out of here! You shouldn't be here. Don't talk about this to anyone." So that was in 2015. I mean, JP did share that incident with me, but he was denied access because he was a civilian, and it happened a second time as well, and I cover that in the book. So this is the benefit of JP joining the military, is that he is now going to be given access. And he felt that that was actually a very important reason for joining the military. And so he did join. And so the book, this is volume 1. Volume 2 will come out sometime around September, October, before this big Orlando conference that I'm going to be attending, the Galactic Spiritual Informers convention that is going to be held in Orlando. So I'll be talking about that much more later as we get closer to that. So let's move on to the next story. This is a story where the metallic orbs are being seen around the planet. So JP talked many months ago about more and more metallic orbs being seen around the planet as a prelude to space arcs appearing. So this was something he's talked about, and NASA at a recent meeting the previous week, they held a get-together with 24 NASA experts where they had different people presenting. One of those people was Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick from the Advanced Anomalous Resolution Office, ARROW office. And he talked about most sightings today reported around the world are these metallic spherical orbs. And that is exactly what JP reported would be happening months ago, that the space arcs that he has been seeing around the Earth and in space, that they are releasing more of these metallic orbs. So this was something that was presented at this NASA meeting where Dr. Kirkpatrick presented his findings. And so this is a story discussing that. So let's move on. Okay, here's a webinar from Elena Danan, where she talks about a recent trip to Turkey and Mesopotamia, where she met Yazidis who still worship the ancient Sumerian gods and remember the legends about Enki, Ninhursag, and Enlil. Now, you know, Elena Danan, I mean, where do people stand on Elena Danan? Of course, she has a big fan base. There are critics as well, of course. Always critics and supporters. So where do I stand on Elena? Well, I mean, of course, I support Elena because she is a researcher as well as a contactee. And this is a good example of the type of thing that she does. Well, she doesn't just give you a story. I mean, there's a lot of people out there giving you these fabulous stories about, you know, going off planet or being involved in this SSP mission, or they have these memories of being kings on other worlds and all of that. You know, sure, people have incredible stories. That's good, fair enough. That's always worth considering. But where's the evidence for this? What evidence do you have supporting your extraordinary claims? You know, I do look for evidence. And what I like about Elena Danan is that she actually makes the effort to present evidence. So here she goes to this area in the east of Turkey, ancient Mesopotamia, and she met these Yazidis, which is an ancient group of Kurds that still worship the old ways. They still worship the Sumerian gods. They remember the legends of Enki, Ninhursag, and Enlil, and she saw statues, she saw monuments describing various things. One of the things that was very clear was that she saw some monuments, statuettes, that showed 7 angels helping Enki, the Yazidi version of Enki. And she talks about the different names and how they match. But that corroborates with information she has been getting from Prince Ea, or Enki, who has returned recently. And so, and the information she's been getting from Enki matches what the Yazidis recall about the ancient Anunnaki. So, you know, this is why I think that the testimony and the research efforts of Elena Danan are so valuable, is because not only does she have incredible experiences to share and reports to share, but she looks at the evidence that is available and does the field work, actually goes into the field. She, on her own dime, she paid for this trip to go to eastern Turkey, to ancient Mesopotamia, where she met the Yazidis that worshipped the ancient Sumerian gods, and that confirmed all the information she was getting from Prince Ea. Ask yourself, how many other contactees, alleged SSP personnel, actually do field work to confirm their claims? Very, very few. But Elena does. So that's why her information is very important and why I continue to support her. Okay, so here's another story. This was on June 5th, and June 6th marks the 55th anniversary of the murder of Senator Robert Kennedy while campaigning for the US presidency. So Kennedy, like his brother, was a threat to UFO secrecy and was assassinated by a rogue CIA faction. So how appropriate Bobby Kennedy Jr. is dropping truth bombs and completing his father's mission. Bobby Kennedy is someone that is actually drawing attention to the role of the CIA in the assassination of both his uncle, the president, and his father, Senator Robert Kennedy, while campaigning for the presidency. So June 6 was the 55th anniversary of that assassination. And Robert Kennedy Jr. is dropping truth bombs. Now, why do I say the President Kennedy and his brother Robert were involved in UFO disclosure? That they wanted to overturn the secrecy system that was being enforced by the CIA. I wrote a book, Kennedy's Last Stand, and that came out in 2013, which was the 50th anniversary. So this year, in November 22nd, will be the 60th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination. And I hope to do an update to that book. But in that book, I present all of the evidence, and there's a lot of evidence, documentary evidence, whistleblowers, leaked documents, as well as official documents, showing conclusively that the CIA was involved in the assassination of President Kennedy, acting under the orders of a mysterious group called the Majestic 12 Group that worked directly with a faction or a division within the CIA called the Counterintelligence Division. So, and this is where it's very important to distinguish between the clandestine services and the Counterintelligence Division in the CIA that's responsible for all of these nefarious things from the intelligence branch of the CIA. And the intelligence branch of the CIA that just gathers intel to provide expert analysis on contemporary global events is a very important and essential function. And Robert Kennedy himself says that this is necessary. And there's a lot of good people that work in the intelligence division of the CIA. And I'm sure there's a lot of good people that work in the clandestine division as well. But there are factions within the clandestine division, especially CIA counterintelligence, when it was headed by this person, James Jesus Angleton, who I described in Kennedy's Last Stand as carrying out the orders of the Majestic 12 Group to assassinate President Kennedy. And I think Robert Kennedy, Senator Robert Kennedy, he was targeted because he was involved in passing on information concerning UFOs and classified reverse engineering projects to the president. And in Kennedy's Last Stand, I actually describe how none other than Lieutenant Philip Corso, while working at this research and development branch at the US Army, headed by a three-star general, Lieutenant General Arthur Trudeau, I believe I got that right. Colonel Philip Corso was going to the office of the Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, and giving him briefings about the Army's efforts to disseminate some of the technologies recovered from Roswell to different corporations, and for those corporations to reverse engineer this. And so Philip Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, that came out in 1996, describes all of that. But Corso gave interviews to various people, and in one of those interviews, he actually said that he would go to the office of the Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, and give him briefings of what the Army was doing. So the Kennedy brothers were totally in the loop about some of the classified technologies that were being reverse engineered by the military. But of course, the CIA, the Majestic 12 Group, gave President Kennedy the runaround. They never disclosed what was really going on. And that that's why the President Kennedy was assassinated, because he was getting too close due to his efforts to work with Russia and Secretary General Khrushchev to share UFO information. So that's something you can read about in Kennedy's Last Stand. Okay, so let's move on to the next story. Okay, so I did an appearance on Coast to Coast AM discussing the release of the new book, U.S. Army Insider Missions. So yeah, that's on Coast to Coast AM, and yeah, George Nuri asked a lot of good questions, and yeah, you can watch that or listen to that if you're a Coast to Coast subscriber. Okay, here we have the big story that really dominated the news waves last week, and that is that a retired intelligence officer was cleared to reveal details about a decades-long unidentified anomalous phenomena, that's the modern term for UFO, crash retrieval program where major nations compete for exotic technologies is groundbreaking. Witnesses are coming forward due to the new whistleblower protection law in the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act for UAP information. So that was that's the act that was passed by Congress at the end of 2022, which essentially ensures funding for the Pentagon for the fiscal year 2023. So it had in there some provisions for whistleblower protection, and what those whistleblower protection provisions did was to essentially allow whistleblowers knowledgeable about UAPs or UFOs to come forward and reveal to the AARO office what was going on, and that they could break their non-disclosure agreements with any corporation or with the military. So that's a really big one, because these non-disclosure agreements, I mean, they are very powerful. They stop virtually anyone involved in the classified world, whether they're military, whether they're part of a corporation, from talking about their experiences. So this whistleblower provision in the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act gives these people protection. So this leads us to this article by the Debrief, where that covered this whistleblower, David Grusch, or Grusch. Grusch, I believe, is the German pronunciation. This was a story covered by Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal. This was a story that they submitted previously to the New York Times, to Politico, and to The Hill, all major publications, which if any of those had run with it, this would have just gone straight out into the mainstream. But they all passed on this story, and I think part of the reason was there was some timing issue, and the Washington Post did the same thing. So they published this story eventually in the Debrief, where they talk about the testimony of this man, David Grusch, a decorated US Air Force officer who went on to work with the National Reconnaissance Office, went on to work with the National Geospatial Agency as the liaison to the AARO office. And so what he did as the liaison to the AARO office and its predecessor was that he would talk to various people, corporate and military officials, and find out what they knew about UFOs, UAPs. And that's when he was told about these reverse engineering programs concerning extraterrestrial craft. So he's told about this, and he's apparently passing this information onto the AARO office. And the AARO office really doesn't do anything with it, just ignores it, essentially. And so he's upset by that. Apparently, he's retaliated against, and so he launches a whistleblower complaint to the Inspector General. Now, what's interesting about David Grusch is that he was given clearance, or he was allowed by a body, a pre-publication body within the Pentagon that reviews any intelligence or military official who's going to be writing about their programs that they were involved in. So he was submitted what he was going to be talking about in his interviews to various individuals that would then be published in this debrief article. So he was given clearance, which essentially meant that he asked for permission to talk about certain things, and those things concerned what he was told by these other sources concerning UAPs, UFOs. There's no classified information here. So essentially what that meant was that none of his information was classified. So essentially he's talking about secondhand reports on UAPs being reverse engineered, and that there are a number of programs to do this. Now, the thing that makes his story very compelling, of course, is his credentials, that he, up until recently, was a serving Air Force officer who also worked with these top agencies, the NRO, the NGA, and he was given clearance by the pre-publication unit within the Pentagon to talk about his experiences. So he's a very highly credentialed person. This debrief article talked about two individuals that said that David Grush is the real deal. He's very credible, and if he says something, you can take it to the bank. So this is a Colonel Carl Nell who corroborated David Grush. That's David Grush while he's working for the Air Force. And there was another insider, Jonathan Gray, also a high-level insider who was familiar with David Grush and also vouched for him. So two sources, very credible sources, were found by the two authors of this debrief article, saying that yeah, David Grush is the real deal. You can take it to the bank, whatever he's saying. So there's a lot of debate about David Grush and what his testimony entails, and I don't want to go into the relationship he's had with other people that has led to a lot of kind of debate as to whether or not he is part of a kind of like limited hangout. I mean, I think the fact that he is talking about these issues with official support does kind of raise the possibility that this is a limited hangout where the goal may be to really push this agenda of UFOs being a threat. He is associated with Luis Elizondo, Christopher Mellon. These people have been pushing for the last few years that UAPs are a national security threat. And of course, many people have legitimately pointed out that this could be a prelude to some sort of false flag alien invasion. Well, to be fair to David Grush, he doesn't talk about UAPs as being a threat. He's just talking about his knowledge of what it was that he saw or not what he saw, but what he was told by these people involved in the reverse engineering efforts. So very important testimony, and it got a lot of coverage in the mainstream media. And it's absolutely correct. That is going on. As I mentioned earlier, you can go back to the early 1960s when Colonel Philip Corso was going to the office of the Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, telling him about the Army's involvement in reverse engineering efforts by seeding various corporations with extraterrestrial technologies that were instrumental in the development of things like Kevlar, armor, fiber optics, the kind of computer chips, silicon chips. These breakthrough technologies, according to Corso, were all due to these extraterrestrial technologies being seeded or given to these different corporations who then got ideas on how to reverse engineer these things. And that continues today. So I think that aspect of his testimony is correct. This could be part of a disclosure plan that is underway. I have talked earlier about, in some of my articles, I've talked about reports going back to January of this year, where there was a plan hatched at a classified NORAD facility or Northcom facility there in Pennsylvania, where there was an extraterrestrial who delivered a disclosure plan to General Glenn Van Herk, the 4-star general head of Northcom. So it could well be that this is all part of the disclosure plan that White Hats are supporting. On the other hand, there are those saying that this is a limited hangout to prepare us for a UFO threat, and that we are facing a kind of false flag operation involving extraterrestrials that the deep state is going to pull at the last moment to maintain its power. So we'll see what happens. So that was the David Grush testimony. There was a need to know YouTube interview that gives you the backstory about David Grush, where he is. They show segments of the individual interviewing David Grush, an Australian journalist who interviewed Grush for, I think it was 7 hours, and that interview is going to be released on Sunday night. The full interview is going to be released on Sunday night. You can go to this website, Need to Know, to get more information about that. But in this interview, you have Bryce Zabel and this Australian journalist, Colhart, I can't remember his full name, being interviewed on Need to Know, and he gives the backstory of what happened. So very helpful if you want to learn more about David Grush and why his testimony is so important. Let's move on. Okay, so this is Robert Kennedy Jr. dropping a truth bomb. His belief that the CIA killed his father, Bobby Kennedy, just like his brother, JFK. As I said earlier, JFK, like Bobby, were eliminated because they knew too much about the ET UFO cover-up and wanted to end it. So Robert Kennedy Jr. is on the record for not only saying that the CIA was involved in the assassination of his uncle, but were also involved in the assassination of his father. Now, that is a bloody big truth bomb. I mean, there's a lot of Democrats out there that are shaking their heads in disbelief. It's like, what? This is what the conspiracy theorists have been saying. Aren't they lunatic Trump supporters? Why should we believe those lunatics, those warmongers, or whatever it is that whatever descriptive term they want to give to people on the right wing that are saying the Kennedys were assassinated? Well, here you have a scion of the Kennedy family, Robert Kennedy Jr., saying the Kennedy brothers were assassinated by the CIA. And I mentioned earlier my book, Kennedy's Last Stand, where I present the evidence I could find about this. And it is rock solid, I think. There's smoking gun evidence that this really did happen. And Robert Kennedy Jr. is acknowledging that. So that is a pretty big truth bomb. And Bobby Kennedy Jr. is dropping a lot of truth bombs. Really amazing to see what he's doing. He's very outspoken on the Ukraine war, that this was an unnecessary war, that Russia was provoked, and that Ukraine really needs to find a resolution. There needs to be diplomacy rather than pouring weapons and just encouraging the Ukrainians to keep fighting, because a whole generation of young Ukrainian men are being slaughtered in a war that's doomed to fail, just because there are people within the deep state that want to weaken Russia, and they're using Ukraine as fodder to weaken Russia, and that's just decimating a whole generation of young Ukrainian men. And Robert Kennedy has the courage to drop that truth bomb. So now here's another truth bomb. His father, Bobby Kennedy, Senator Robert Kennedy, was assassinated. So let's go back. Okay. All right. June 6th, one day after the release of US Army Insiders, it makes the bestseller list. So the paperback version made the bestseller list. The Kindle edition also made the bestseller list in a number of categories. So thanks to all of those that bought that book about JP. So it's out there, and there'll be another one following later on. So definitely this is a great way to kind of red pill people, because JP is active Army. I showed documents in there showing that he is Army. I actually was taken by JP to the military base where he serves with my wife. He gave us a tour. So, you know, he is the real deal. He is involved in missions. He is not someone that is giving you secondhand reports. David Grush, I think his testimony is very important, high level. I mean, he's equivalent rank of a colonel. I think he's a GS-15 in the bureaucracy, or was a GS-15 in the bureaucracy. JP is enlisted. He's been serving for 4 years now. But he is directly involved in these covert missions. He has been directly exposed to reverse engineered extraterrestrial technologies and has seen some of the efforts to develop these off-planet facilities. So, yep, this is primary eyewitness testimony. So definitely share it with your friends. If you've got family members serving in the military, buy a copy and give it to them as a gift. Okay, so let's go on. Now, this was very interesting. This tweet, I realized that Dennis Kucinich is Robert Kennedy's campaign manager. Now, Dennis Kucinich ran for president in 2008, and he discussed his own UFO sighting, and he heard voices. He had telepathic communications, and he talked about this, and he said that he had made a heart connection with the UFO. Now, of course, in 2008, the mainstream media just made a mockery of him. But Dennis Kucinich talked about his sighting with Shirley MacLaine, and this became public. Shirley MacLaine made that public, and so Dennis Kucinich, he's connected with this UFO ET phenomenon. Personally, I think he is a very enlightened soul. He's very progressive, and he is Robert Kennedy's campaign manager. So I think he is really a major force behind the scenes in getting Kennedy to drop a lot of truth bombs. So that can explain why Kennedy is taking the position he's taken on many issues. So let's move on. Robert Kennedy. Okay, this is very interesting. So Robert Kennedy acknowledging the truth that extraterrestrials are behind the UFO phenomenon. So this is Robert Kennedy retweeting that debrief article about David Grush, about the classified reverse engineering. And I'm not surprised that he would retweet this, because an important, as I mentioned in the tweet, an important fact is that his dad, while Attorney General, was regularly briefed by Colonel Philip Corso about recovered ET technology and reporting back to JFK. So when Robert Kennedy was Attorney General, his son, Robert Kennedy Junho, was, I think he was about nine years old when the president was assassinated. And he was 13 when his father was assassinated. So it's possible that Robert Kennedy Jr. would learn firsthand from his father that, guess what? Guess what, Junior? Guess what, Bobby? We are reverse engineering extraterrestrial technologies. I wouldn't be surprised if Senator Kennedy told his son, Bobby Kennedy Jr., back before his assassination in 1968, that, yeah, I know for a fact that the US government is reverse engineering captured extraterrestrial technology. So Robert Kennedy Jr., people on the left criticized Kennedy, said, what are you doing? You are casting your lot in with all these conspiracy theorists. I mean, you're dropping all these truth bombs. I mean, you're undermining yourself and your credibility by getting on board with this stupid conspiracy theory that extraterrestrial technologies are being reverse engineered by corporations and that they are building secret spacecraft with this. Well, Robert Kennedy Jr. knows the truth, either directly from his father, and certainly his father, Robert Kennedy, if he didn't tell his son, I'm sure he told his wife, Ethel Kennedy, what was really going on. And I'm sure Ethel would have told her son or sons and daughters, this is why we think your dad and your uncle were assassinated, because of this UFO stuff that they wanted to get out into the public arena. So Robert Kennedy Jr. saying that this debrief article and the high-level status of this whistleblower, David Grush, shows that conspiracy theory is true. I guess Men in Black got it right. Well, there you go. So Robert Kennedy dropping another truth bomb that extraterrestrials are visiting us, that there's a cover-up of extraterrestrial life, and that extraterrestrial technologies are being reverse engineered. Okay, so here's another truth bomb. This one was very impressive. He is talking about chemtrails with Dane Wigington. Well, Dane Wigington has been around for well over a decade now. He's really been doing a lot of work on global geoengineering, presenting all the data on chemtrails. I do plan to interview him on Exopolitics Today. He definitely is on my wish list of people I'd like to bring on to talk about chemtrails and how that relates to the extraterrestrial phenomenon. I know that there are people that have talked about extraterrestrials being involved with this. So I want to get Dave Wigington onto the show. But here he is being interviewed by Robert Kennedy on Robert Kennedy's show. And boy, I mean, talk about truth bombs. Dane Wigington just lays it all out. Robert Kennedy is very impressed by the facts that Dane Wigington lays out. So that is well worth viewing, because there is a very important connection between chemtrails and the extraterrestrial phenomenon. According to William Tompkins, in his books, Selected by Extraterrestrials, in volume 2 of that book, he explains very clearly that extraterrestrials are working with corrupt government controllers, corporate insiders, to seed our atmosphere with all of these toxic chemicals to not only dumb us down, essentially, so that we are easily manipulated. And so there is an extraterrestrial connection here. So yeah, Robert Kennedy discusses that with Dane Wigington. Very important. Okay, I did an interview that came out on Thursday with Suzanne Spooner on QHHT Insights. So let me say this about QHHT. I was very impressed when I read the books by Dolores Cannon, Convoluted Universe. And I was impressed by the details of the different people she hypnotized and got them to talk about past lives, and some of these past lives involved extraterrestrials. Now, that is, to me, a very important source of information, QHHT. But as Dolores Cannon herself acknowledged, I mean, QHHT, a lot of the witnesses often don't get it. They're not consistent. There's a lot of inconsistency with what QHHT people sometimes bring up, which is why I personally like to use QHHT as part of my triangulation method. So triangulation, the way I do triangulation with my exopolitics research, I try and look at least 3 sources whenever I do my research. So, like one source can be something like QHHT or remote viewing that gives us information on a particular issue. Another is, say, insiders or contactees, people who have direct experience. So someone like JP or someone like Elena Danan, who, eyewitnesses, and they've been in the secret programs, or they've seen the secret facility on Jupiter and they report about it. Okay, so you have eyewitness claims. And then you have documents, whether they are leaked documents like the Majestic documents, or you have official documents released through the FOIA. I try to do that because, to me, this triangulation helps us get a more nuanced understanding of the phenomenon. So I think QHT is very helpful, very important tool, but it's just part of the tool set. You've got to put it all together to understand what is going on. And what I especially liked about Suzanne Spooner, her kind of like testimony, and what she recalled was this event that she discussed. She interviewed an individual called Ron Head. Well, didn't really interview him. I guess she did some QHHT sessions with him over a number of years. And he talked about this event that is coming, where essentially we move from a 3D reality into a 5D reality. And I think that is absolutely correct, that we are moving towards something. And on the other side of this event, kind of like a global awakening, if you like, that the secret government exists, the deep state has been doing all these things to control us, hiding the truth from us, and all of a sudden the truth is being revealed. And we're seeing it right now in the United States and around the world with Robert Kennedy dropping all these truth bombs. I mean, the conservatives have been red-pilled by Trump and Q, the Q movement. The Q movement and Trump, the relationship between them, Q was a military intelligence operation involved closely with the Trump administration, and they put out a lot of information. And that red-pilled a lot of conservatives. A lot of independents got red-pilled that way. But a lot of Democrats said that this was all conspiracy theory. These are all deplorables, according to Hillary Clinton. Don't listen to them. Well, Robert Kennedy is a bastion of liberal thinking, very articulate, fine intellect. And so he is not someone that can be ignored. So they are being red-pilled. Democrats are being red-pilled. And I think at a certain point, we're going to reach a critical mass where you have so many Democrats that are red-pilled joining the conservatives and independents that are being red-pilled, that'll be a revolution. That will be the event. And I think it's not far. I mean, these truth bombs are coming really, really fast, and Robert Kennedy's candidacy is just rising so quickly, it's getting a lot of attention. Okay, so this is where I have a surprise for you. Yes, a surprise. So here's a story of a news report of a 10-foot tall alien, or 2 alien visitors landing and taking off in a Las Vegas home. Their craft was witnessed by police and dozens of witnesses. And the Las Vegas family. Okay, so this is the story. There's a YouTube video on it that discusses this family, their encounter. So the background is that a lot of people, including a policeman, see a UFO kind of coming down like a shooting star into a particular area of Las Vegas. And then there's a 911 call where the caller says there are 2 10-foot tall alien-looking beings in my backyard. Get the police over here quickly. And so the police go there, and by that time, the 10-foot tall aliens are gone. So this is because literally dozens of people saw the UFO coming down into this area, and then you had this report. It got a lot of attention, a lot of coverage of this particular story. So you can go there, on my Twitter feed, and there's the link. You can watch it if you wanted to see the.
It is the police call everybody will be talking about. Thanks for joining us here at 6 o'clock. I'm Denise Valdez.
I'm Brian Loftus. A family says something crashed into their backyard, prompting them to call 911, saying they saw creatures walking around.
Okay, so there you go. Go and watch that report if you haven't already seen it. So the surprise I have for you is that JP gave me a message. And he gave me this message on Friday. And so I'm going to play this message to you because this incident, he believes, is directly related to the information he received when he went to this very big spaceport under this island in the South Atlantic. So here's the clip from JP. Well, I'm very happy to have JP back on Exopolitics Today. He's going to talk to us about this incident that was reported in Las Vegas, where there was quite a lot of interest in this sighting of a UFO, where there were a lot of people, including police, that saw a flashing object land in the vicinity of a neighborhood. And the person living in that property rang the police because they saw a 10-foot tall alien and described it as this kind of non-human looking being. So JP, you want to tell us what's so important about that story and what it is that you were told by the Nordics in your, in some of your missions?
How you doing, Doc? Thank you for this opportunity. Hey, I just really want to say to the public, I got brung in our last interview. I told you that, remember that they had me in this metal box and all that, and they took me to the middle of the Atlantic, and I talked to this particular Nordic, and he told me that yes, that we're gonna start showing up to people, and we're gonna start showing up around volcanoes, and we're gonna start showing up on different types of military bases around the world, not just the United States. So I just want people to understand that when this happens to you, you can't be overwhelmed. People need to educate themselves more in the exopolitics, in the UFO community, and people are waking up, and the media is talking more about this. So I just want to relate this message that when you have interaction with these entities, with these ETs, you need to be calm. It's a present. It's something special. I know you might be scared because of their appearance, or because it's not gonna be just one species visiting. It's gonna be a ton of different species showing up to people and trying to communicate, because it is time, and you just need to stay calm. And sometimes when you are overwhelmed and you look at these extraterrestrials face to face, you sometimes do freeze because their frequency is really different from ours. So you need to be calm and have like a loving sensation when you interact with these entities. Not probably call 911 and call the cops and make it go go insane. You need to be calm, show love, show a good vibration, and you will have the interaction, and you will share this interaction with other people. Other people will have this same interaction. It's like a chain reaction. Not become overwhelmed, not become negative about this situation. Is a present when this happens to you. This is like when you go to the zoo for the first time and you see a tiger for the first time. You feel like, wow, appreciation of it. Or you see an elephant, how magnificent is it for the first time? And but these entities are as smart, or maybe way smarter than us when they interact with us. So we have to show an appreciation of their existence when you interact with these entities. You can't be scared, you can't be overwhelmed. You just need to be calm and approach when they approach you. Don't run away, or they're gonna, they're gonna leave. They're just gonna leave because they're gonna say, hey, they're not ready. Let's go to another location. So they jump location to location, location to location to see who's ready to interact with them. And and this was huge because they got it caught in the police cams. And that's exactly how it felt when I was in Brazil. You feel that vibration and that blurriness, because the vibration of the ship and the entity is different. It's just a different love, like it's hard to explain. But when you go through this experience, it changes you, and I'm really happy people are now seeing these entities now. So I'm really happy that the Nordic relate that message to me, and it's happening, and it's gonna happen more, Doc. It's gonna happen a lot more on different countries. I'm sure different countries are having experiences as well. Brazil, Europe, Russia, China, Japan, Hawaii. Everybody's gonna have these experiences, and I can't wait where this goes. But yeah, that's why I wanted really to tell the public to relax. If this happens to you, it's a present, and sooner or later it's gonna happen to somebody that's open. Somebody that's open-minded with this, and they're already educated on what's happening in the ET community. And that's gonna be awesome, and then they're gonna have interacting, and then the videos of these entities will come out instead of the UFOs, because the UFOs has a different vibration than the entity itself, even though the entity is connected to the UFO. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say, but the spacecraft has a different vibration than the entity itself. The reason the entity is inside the spacecraft, it's a science, Doc. So before seeing the entity, you need to see the UFO first, and the frequency goes to the entity. So it's I just wanted to say that.
Well, thank you, JP. I know that that is one of the things that you've been told, I think, on several missions, going back to 2022, when you went to see the ant civilization, that you were told that they were going to be revealing themselves. And of course, these other missions since then, to those spaceports and seeing Nordics, you were being told that they were going to be interacting. And I guess with this particular incident in Las Vegas, the people described it as somewhere between 8 to 10 foot tall, kind of like big eyes, and it didn't look human. So we're not talking about a human-looking ET, but that's what you were told. It's going to be many different species, and this is going to be happening more and more, and people just got to get used to it.
Yeah, and you can't be scared. I know they look different, Doc. They look so weird, but you have to respect the way their planet made them. Like, there's different atmospheres, there's different size of planets. The reason that sometimes maybe they're way bigger than our, not all planets are the same size, Doc. We got planets that are like 10 times bigger than Earth, and these entities are the ants of that Earth, a massive Earth, compared to it's like if our ants visited a smaller Earth planet and they're the size of us. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say, but they're going to be different sizes, 15 feet or maybe 3 feet, 5. They're going to be different sizes. But I guess their ship has a way to calibrate what planet to visit, and it's closer to their planet, similar to their planet. So they know which planet to visit and which planet not to visit, because they might be too small or maybe too big, you know? So it's like that, you know? People need to be calm when these entities come in sight with them, you know?
Okay, well, that's a very important advice. I hope that people having these kinds of experiences, encounters with different looking extraterrestrials, follow your advice and just remain calm, that this is all part of the awakening, of the disclosure process, and we're right in the middle of it now. So that is excellent advice. Any parting words you want to leave the audience with, JP, before we sign off?
Think positive. Meditate a lot. I'm doing more fasting. You know, it's always good to show love and care for people. If you see somebody in the street needing help, go to that person and, hey, do you need help? You see somebody changing a tire, hey, pull over. Hey, you need help to change a tire. You know, make sure you're visible in front of other people and all that. Be safe. Be safe about it, because, you know, there's always negative energy around there. But, you know, be kind. Be kind to people. Be nice. Don't be evil. Be nice. And I will assure you that you'll have a contact of some sort. You just have to show love and be nice and share all this information to everybody. Yeah, that's my message to the people. And I love everybody.
Thank you, JP. Okay, so there you have JP's report on this incident, which is fascinating, and I think it is the start of many, many incidents that people are going to have, because, I mean, what we are having right now is kind of like a stalemate between the deep state and the white hats in the military, and what we are going to be witnessing is more of these ships coming forward, being sighted. Extraterrestrials or inner Earth beings are going to be interacting with people, and that's going to shape, and that's going to lead to this awakening process that we are witnessing. Okay, so this was on June 8th, so that was on Thursday. So there's an article that came out saying that there are more whistleblowers coming forward to expose classified reverse engineering programs. So this is an article that appeared in Substack, and in this particular article, this is well-known author Michael Schellenberger. He has interviewed people and has said that in addition to David Grush, there are other witnesses that say that 12 or more alien spacecraft have been retrieved by the US, and that they are being studied and reverse engineered according to military and intelligence contractors. So Grush has kind of like started a rush, if you like, that more whistleblowers are emboldened by his revelations, that you can actually talk about these things now without violating your NDA, and that's leading to more people coming forward. And you know, there's a kind of tug of war now as to how much of this information that is being fed up to the Arrow office under the chair of the Arrow office, which is David Kirkpatrick. Sean Kirkpatrick, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. How much of that data that he is getting is actually being included? Is he getting it and saying, oh, well, this is just hearsay, I'm getting no official documents supporting any of this, so we don't know any of it, we don't know that's credible, and so they're dismissing it all. So, you know, that's a concern, because if these whistleblowers come forward and are saying, yeah, you know, this is what I saw and experienced, and their testimonies are not being included because there's no documentation to substantiate these, and that the Arrow office is not acting on it, then yeah, that is a problem. So I think we probably have, with this phenomenon of more and more insiders, whistleblowers coming forward, that there's a kind of struggle, a factional struggle between the white hats and the deep state over this. So now I'm going to go to the last update that just put out yesterday, which is an article that appeared in Zero Hedge by Global Intel Hub. And Global Intel Hub is based in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is where I live at the moment. And I have met the person behind Global Intel Hub, but I won't say more about him. But he is looking at these whistleblower testimonies, such as David Gurush and JP. He does look at JP's testimony as well, looking at it in terms of investment opportunities. So that's very important, investment opportunities for people, for financiers, for those that want to be part of the future, that this is an incredible opportunity. And the fact that Zero Hedge is running more and more of these articles dealing with UFOs, reverse engineering, extraterrestrial life, is a sign that the kind of like investment world is interested in this, because, you know, let's face it, extraterrestrial life and technologies being openly revealed and disclosed. I mean, if you run a major company, whether it's in transportation, energy, health modalities, you've got to be interested in this stuff, because as it's now being confirmed to be true, that all these whistleblowers are coming forward saying that, yeah, it really is happening. These ET technologies are being found and are being studied and reverse engineered. So if you're in the investment world, then you want to jump on board of that before everyone does. You've got to be ahead of the curve if you want to make your profit. This is the opportunity, right? Because now it's a time to seed startups. So Intel Hub, Global Intel Hub, definitely someone that is very knowledgeable on these topics. So have a look at that article and follow Global Intel Hub. All right, well, that brings to an end the kind of tweets I wanted to cover from my feed from last week. So what I want to do is just finish up by saying, well, first of all, the book. I've already mentioned the book a few times. So, the book is available on Amazon. You can get a copy, share it with friends and family. And I also want to plug my upcoming webinar on May 24, which will be, June 24. June 24, 2 weeks from today, my next webinar, Super Soldiers and Ascended Masters. So I'll be looking at these two pathways for humanity's emergence into a galactic society. So I'll talk more about that in future Week in Review episodes. So that brings to a conclusion this first Week in Review for Exopolitics Today. I hope you liked it. I plan to do these once a week, and definitely share and like this podcast. Get your friends to take a look, and you are the ones that are part of this awakening process by sharing this kind of groundbreaking information with your friends and family. So thank you, and appreciate you supporting Exopolitics Today.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.